Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Gwinnett NAACP Sunday Conversation. We have a great agenda for you today. We're going to talk about the census. We're going to talk about things going on here in Gwinnett. We'll also have an update from our political action chair, and we'll also talk a little bit about small business, and we'll end with some faith community words of inspiration. So with that in mind, I will hand it over to our Gwinnett NAACP president, Penny Poole. Good afternoon, Penny.
Hey, good afternoon, Simeon. Thank you. And we pray that everyone is sheltering safely and going out when needed and being safe. Welcome to the Gwinnett NAACP Sunday Conversation. We have a lot of information for you as always. And we want to make sure that our focus is that we're focused and centered on the things that are important. Everyone is talking about COVID, but we're not remembering to talk about census. We're not remembering to talk about your family health and welfare and making sure that we're steadfast and unmovable. So get ready, relax. Please enjoy what we're about to bring to you. And thank you for coming this afternoon. With that, let's lead into our speaker for today with the Census Bureau, Vanessa Thomas, who is a regional director and a good friend of the Gwinnett NAACP. Welcome, Vanessa.
Okay, thank you so much, President Penny Poole. Let me just make one correction. I'm not a regional director. I am a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau, and I am Vanessa Thomas. Once again, I want to thank you all again for this opportunity, and I want to provide an update on where we are in the 2020 census here in Gwinnett County. I must say that the NAACP has done an awesome job, have been an awesome partner. And I'm so glad that you all keep us in the forefront. Every initiative you have, I don't care what it is, census is on your agenda. I do want to give you some results as of yesterday, May the 2nd. For the self-response rate, getting people to respond to the census on the national level, we're at 56.3%. In the state of Georgia, we're at 52.7%. But in Gwinnett County, we're at 60.6% of the self-response for 2020. That is absolutely awesome. The self-response rate in 2010 was 66.3. So knowing that we're at 60.6 right now in Gwinnett County, we're going to surpass that of what we did in 2010. And that's thanks to the Gwinnett County NAACP. One thing I do want you to know about the operations. Considering the COVID-19 outbreak, the Census Bureau has adjusted the 2020 operations in order to protect the health and safety of the American public and the Census Bureau employees. The census operation date has been adjusted to implement the guidance from the federal, state, and local authorities regarding COVID-19. And another reason, most importantly, the timeline has been adjusted to ensure we have a complete and accurate count of all communities. The online, phone, and mail self-responses, we're going to continue that through October 31st. So we're at 60.6% in Gwinnett County. We're going to keep pushing forward through October the 31st of 2020. That's the time we have for individuals to respond to the census. My ask of you as a partnership specialist, I'm going to ask you to continue to doing what you're doing, keeping the census in the forefront of the continuous engagement of the communities in which you serve. Right now, we're asking you as an organization and individually to continue to promote the census on your media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, whatever platform is out there. We ask you to promote We want you to let the people know, let everybody know, you need to respond now. Act now. Now is the acceptable time. Individually, we ask that you reach out to your circle of influence. For example, your telephone, your call list on your personal phone. Just send them a little short text asking them to respond now at my2020census.gov. I'm going to ask each of y'all to please reach out to your churches, to your homeowners associations. Either you reach out or feel free to provide the information to me. I'll reach out. It's the little things that we're doing that's going to make the difference. So once again, I want to say thank you all so much, and let's keep pushing forward here in Gwinnett County. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. And let's see if we have any questions for her at this time. Are there questions specifically how you may be able to participate in this process since we do have COVID-19? Maybe are there other ways that people can earn extra income? Those are some of the things on my mind, Vanessa. Can you address those?
Well, let me just say this. As far as the employment line, I know that my understanding is that we are still calling, trying to reach people. Of course, you can always go online and apply at 2020census.gov. Go online and apply for jobs. There are jobs, for a matter of fact, if you go to the website, there are jobs out there at USA.jobs.gov. There are jobs out there. So I'm not here to talk about the jobs portion of it per se, but I do know jobs are out there.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions for Vanessa?
No questions for Vanessa, but it's just interesting. I was on a family reunion Zoom call, and my niece, who's 25, said that she keeps getting letters from the census, and I had to direct her, and will direct her, to the website so she can fill out the census. And I'll make sure that that goes into our family group chat as well, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I can follow that same. I was talking to my mom and my siblings about the census as well, and we're all on board. I know, a lot of folks on the call definitely, I'm sure, understand this, but can you take a moment and just explain how the census could affect us here in Gwinnett County?
Absolutely. First of all, and I always like to give 3 points, the importance of the census. One thing is congressional representation, for the state of Georgia, the U.S. House of Representatives. It will be those seats will be reallocated based on the data from the 2020 census. The next thing is redistricting at the national, state, and local level. But I think the part you want me to get to, and I'm sure everybody's, is the money. There's over $675 billion that will be contributed annually based on population. And when we think about our communities, we think about our schools, we think about free lunch programs, we think about the health care, we think about when I think about the parks, you think about how can it help? I think about the parks, that anything that is federally funded impacts us. And believe it or not, our children under 5 was undercounted in 2010. That's a lifetime, that's 10 years. If we're not counted, think about COVID-19, and I'm gonna bring it a little bit closer to home right now. When funds are allocated to the communities, is based on the count. And the data that's going to be used will be the 2020 census. So if there is anything, vaccines, resources surrounding COVID-19 going into 2020, 2021, 2022, think about that. The funds will be based on the population. If you're not counted, then the funds will not come. The money does not follow the needs. It follows the numbers. One other thing too that's very good, you talk about the roads, you talk about the hospitals, you talk about attracting businesses to our communities, and also upkeep. So think about federally funded programs. If it's tied to federal funds, then it will impact us in the community. So that's why, there's some of the reasons why it's so important.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I filled out my census and then I got another questionnaire in the mail. Is there a way for us to track, you know, that?
Well, let me make sure I'm understanding. You said you filled out your census online, then you got the paper copy?
Yeah, I did. I filled it online and then I got a paper copy afterwards.
Okay, and it could be the timing, because once you fill it, unless the timing of the mail out are very close, once you fill it out online, by phone or by mail, and when you say mail that we've gotten it and we know we have it, you should not be receiving reminders from the census. Now, let me just say this, because I received a call and one of my family members said they filled it out and wanted to know why they keep receiving calls to fill out the census. Those calls are not coming from the Census Bureau, but you have organizations, and I'm going to use the NAACP, for example. If you were doing a call out, you really don't know who responded. So you're going to call everybody on your call list, since you don't know who responded, because that's confidential. So you may still get telephone calls from organizations encouraging you to respond. Those are not from the census. That's from our trusted voices, our important partners who want to make sure you're counted. So you should not get another mail, and you should not be receiving any reminders if you've already responded.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you this. When you responded, did you get a confirmation number?
I did, and I think I saved this. I need to go back and find it.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good then. You're good. You're good.
But I was thinking it doesn't hurt to be counted more than once. So I should just not say that on the record. So maybe I should fill out the paper when they mailed me.
Well, you won't be counted more than once. No. Let's hope not. We want to count everyone once and only once, and in the right place. That's the goal.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
You know, I was doing some research on my family tree and trying to branch out one of the sides of my family tree that I hadn't really touched yet. And it was a census that really gave me more information. It was a census that let me know that one of my great aunts died in the flu of 1918. And it was those different types of things where, you know, my grandfather found out he had a brother that I didn't know he had, you know, that died when he was young. It was those types of things. So when I think about the census now, I also think about what our grandkids and our great-grandkids are going to be able to find, and as a result of that information.
You're absolutely right. You're spot on. You're spot on.
And it's a follow-up with what Simeon is saying. Is there any way that we can get the 1950 census released before 2022, Vanessa?
I'm sorry, can you get what?
The 1950 census released before 2022?
Well, let me just, I'm sure there's a way to get, let me check that for you. I personally don't know how, you know, to be able to, how to do that, but I'm going to take that back to see, can we get a copy of, you said the 1950 census.
Yes, ma'am.
Access, how do you have access to that? Let me get, what is your name?
This is Amirah Lawson.
Ms. Lawson, okay. Let me take, I will get an answer for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'll make sure that Ms. Poole gets that, you know, the response to that question.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions there? While we have our census expert here, please, if you have a question, make sure you're asking it.
What happens to individuals who are incarcerated? How are they in any way captured in the census?
There are group quarters. There's in group quarters, we have a special operation called group quarters, where there's a process in which you are counted. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That falls the same as with the schools, you know, certain nursing homes, anything where there's a group. We have a group quarters operation.
So how does their data, does the data get stored based on their last residence, or is it given to that area where they're incarcerated at?
It's given to the area where they're counted.
Well, that's not good. Because that's, I mean, that's
well,
like most of the people who are incarcerated in places that are nowhere near where they live at, and those counties that are getting those numbers are, you know, penal counties. They're prison counties, and so why should they be getting money? I mean, I know they're incarcerating them, so they get money because they're taking care of them and they're incarcerated, but still, that doesn't help those individuals when they get out in terms of, because they're not going to be there forever. They're going to go back home.
But let me just try to answer it this way. You will be counted where you spend most of your time. That's where you're counted.
Okay.
For example, because you can have a residence in another state. Yet, therefore, if you're here in Georgia, and this is where you're spending all of your time, this is where you should be counted. So you're counted where you were spending most of your time as of April the 1st of 2020. That's where wherever you spend most of your time is where you will be counted.
You know, you bring that up, and I see a good statement in chat here. You know, that's part of that prison gerrymandering, and I believe that is exactly one of the things that helps that mass incarceration fuels is those funds in those other areas. So you're right. Spot on in your thoughts there. With that in mind, we still have to make sure we are counted in our given areas and within our communities while we are working to tackle some of those injustices that you see as a result of mass incarceration and the prison gerrymandering, which is why you will have, you know, a family member in prison upstate somewhere, even though they were in South Georgia or in a different area. So absolutely. Great call.
Right. But very good questions. Good, right. Observation.
That's wonderful, because this will segue into why we need to vote locally, why we need to get that power at the local level so that we could make changes with policies and processes. So Vanessa, if there's not anything else or any other questions out there, we definitely would like to segue into our political action chair right now to give us
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
No, I say thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. We're good. I'm good. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate all that knowledge. And if there are anyone out there who needs to get in touch with you, we'll be happy to forward your information for any additional questions. So with that being said, there is so much changing, and there still has been policy that has not been substantiated yet regarding our June 9th primary election, judicial elections. So with that, let's turn it over to Amirah Lawson so she can give us an update on what we should be doing and looking out for in preparing to vote for this 2020 election. Amirah?
Yeah, thank you, Penny. Thank you, Vanessa. I always love to follow Vanessa. I followed her last time. So I'm glad to follow her this week. First and foremost, for me, I'm glad that you all are here. But I want to make sure that you are aware of an opportunity that we have to become civically engaged. And that's by phone banking to our fellow Gwinnett County voters, and to make sure that, one, they have received their application. If they've received it, and that's for the absentee ballot, if they have received it, have they returned it? Do they have any questions? I made some calls. I spent about an hour this morning making calls. I spoke to about 2 people. And they were so happy that I called because they were confused. And so we are phone banking to clear up any confusion. And so I put in the chat that we are having a training session this Wednesday. We are doing virtual phone banks because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the public health emergency. So you can phone bank from home. I'm asking for 2-hour commitments. So we have right now in our phone bank about 2,800 people that we need to contact. A significant number of them are disconnected, unfortunately, but you will get in touch with people. And as I said, the 2 people that I spoke to this morning, they were so glad that I called because they were truly confused about the absentee ballot process. And so, having said all of that, I did put in the chat the information. I would love to have you join us. Would love for you to start phone banking with us virtually. Having said that, as I said, they were very confused. They weren't sure, but they certainly were appreciative that we had called. So at this point, everyone should have received their absentee ballot. If they have not received their absentee ballot, they need to go to our MVP, that's maryvictorpaul.sos.ga.gov, to download an application. You can send that application back to Gwinnett County. You can mail it, you can fax it, you can email it back to Gwinnett County so that you will receive your ballot. And one of the things that we're also doing during the phone bank is not only checking to see if they received their ballot, to see if they returned their ballot, and giving them a reminder to return their ballot, but also making sure that they understand the importance of this vote. And it's not just the primary in deciding who will be on the ballot in November, it's also deciding who will be your judges, because this is the only time that we can vote for judges. It's the June 9th election. That is the general election for nonpartisan judges. So it's very important that we all weigh in. We are encouraging everyone to vote absentee ballot because the situation is so fluid. We don't know what the situation is going to be in June. So just vote absentee ballot. You won't have to worry about it. You won't have to go and stand in lines because, as we know, with the growth of Gwinnett County, lately, the last election cycles, we've been stuck in very long lines to vote. So vote absentee ballot. It will decrease your chances of having to come into contact with other citizens who may be impacted by COVID-19. So I wanted to share that with you. I also wanted to make sure that everyone understood, and I'm looking for my notes here, and of course I cannot find my notes. I'm making sure that everyone understands that in terms of your absentee ballot, the ballot must be in the Gwinnett County voter registration office, and this is your ballot, not your application. If you have an application, please return that as soon as possible so that you may receive your ballot. You will need to select either Democrat or Republican so that you can vote for the judges. But also, once you receive that ballot, that is your actual vote, it needs to be in the Gwinnett County office by election day, 7 p.m. Now, there have been provisions made for drop-off boxes. We don't have that information about drop-off boxes. We don't have information about where early voting is going to take place. We know that it's going to start in May, early voting, but please continue to visit us during our conversations on Sunday. As that information becomes confirmed, we will, and actually I'll be on a call on Monday with Christy Royston with the League of Women Voters. Hopefully we will get that information on Monday, and we'll have a little bit more information to share next Sunday. So want to make sure that everyone participates. We want to make sure that you know how to track your ballot. So again, the mvp.sos.ga.gov website is a very good place for information in terms of whether you are a voter, whether or active voter, and what is the status of your ballot, absentee ballot application. And on May 12th, I have actually reached out to several candidates who are running for district-wide offices. That would be tax commissioner, DA, and sheriff. And we're trying to get them on the May 12th call for the monthly NAACP meeting. So I will keep you posted of that. If there are any questions for me, please let me know. Again, please share with your networks that it is important that they vote, particularly because of the judicial elections. Also, we are looking for groups to volunteer to make phone calls to voters because, like I said, this is a very confusing process. And a lot of voters have never voted absentee ballot. So the more people we can get on the phone to reach out and help voters, the better we will be in terms of the June 9th primary. So with that, I will see if anyone has any questions for me.
Hi, Amirah. This is Denise. Not a question, but a statement. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got my absentee ballot on yesterday, and one of the things that might cause some confusion is that it mentions 2 envelopes. When you do your ballot, you're supposed to put it in the first envelope, a small envelope, and then you're supposed to put it into the second envelope that has yellow on it and says that it's your ballot. That first small envelope that they referenced is not in there.
Okay, and I believe, and I have not received my ballot, Denise, but I believe in addition to what you're saying, because that is very valuable information, but in addition to that, you need to put your birth date, the day that you were born, not your birth date for the year, but the day you were born, and sign that outer envelope. Is that correct? Do you see that on that outer envelope, Denise?
Sorry, I muted myself back. Yes, you do have to indicate, it says signature, is signature or mark of elector, and then printed name of elector and the date.
And the date refers to your birth date, as that has been an issue that have when the last election, that a lot of voters their votes were discarded because they put the wrong date there.
Yeah, and it doesn't say, so that's going to be an issue because it just says date.
So can you do me a favor? Can you hold off sending your ballot back? Let me get some clarification on that tomorrow on the League of Women Voters, because I don't want to give the wrong information. And we will, on next Sunday, we will go over what should be on that outer envelope.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Denise.
Oh, and you'll ask about that other envelope?
Yes, I'm going to ask about the whole entire process to make sure. I do know that there are 2 envelopes, but I do know that they're very peculiar in Gwinnett County about what's on that second envelope. And so I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page about what is required to make sure your ballot is indeed counted. So we'll have that in an update on that next Sunday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Penny, did you have something to add as well?
Yeah, and I'd just like to follow up with that, just for a correction. Christy Royston is the supervisor for the Gwinnett Board of Registration and Elections. She's, again, the supervisor for the Board of Registration and Elections. And those envelopes and the process they have for returning this ballot is just another form of voter suppression. Because what this does is give these instructions that people may not follow, and then this is a way to disqualify your vote. Yeah. So again, Amirah, if you can, we'll be looking forward for an example of what needs to be done and how, so that we can make sure that all these voters in Gwinnett are very clear on this process. Again, these envelopes are nothing but a form of voter suppression. And we will make sure that Gwinnett County will not be holding the people accountable and taking their votes away through this process. So I just wanted to update that. So thank you again, Amirah, for your input and information. And we definitely will be looking for that follow-up next week.
Penny, Amirah, I had a question.
Sure.
In terms of how is that Wednesday training structured? Are we requiring certain groups and organizations to be there? And I think if not, I think that should be strategically done. I mean, just like how the census is operating, I think we need to do the exact same thing in terms of structuring and getting information out in terms of how the voting process is working. So I would love for churches to really start this educational initiative around that, because I'm confused. Amirah, the question that I had too, I remember you, I think 2 weeks ago, you were saying like, my wife and I, we just submitted ours. And thank God I have a wife once again, because men, we kind of procrastinate as it relates to sending the information in. And she got on me about, it's, like health, you know what I'm saying? You got to go to the doctor, so. So I think we have to take all those nuances into account, and we did get ours out. And you had mentioned how do we know if the state received our information again? I know you had mentioned that before. Is that the link that has already been provided?
In the past, and because this is completely foreign territory, you would go to, and Simeon has put the link in the chat. It is the www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. And you would put your information in over on the right-hand corner, your first initial, your last name, your date of birth, and your county. And that pulls up all of your voter information, where you vote, if you're an active voter, but in the bottom left-hand corner is the absentee ballot information. And so you click on the link in there, and that will give you a status update in terms of, did you request it? Has it been sent? Has the ballot been sent? Has your ballot been returned? Again, that's been in the past. We're in very fluid territory, so we don't know if that is going to be accurate this time, but certainly that's an avenue for you to try and figure out, where you are in the process.
Thank you.
If you run into any issues, the Voter Protection Hotline, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. And so in part of our phone banking, we've been providing that information for voters as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have not even received an absentee ballot.
Have you put in your application? Have you received your application for an absentee?
I haven't received anything.
Okay.
That's an issue.
So if you go to the website in the chat, mvp.sos.ga.gov, you can also download an application for an absentee ballot, and you can fax that, mail that, or email that, scan it and email that to Gwinnett County. Okay. And then that will start the process for you to receive your ballot. Okay.
And that link is in chat. That link is in chat, and I'll also have it on the screen.
Yeah, I just saw it. I wrote it down. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Amirah. Great information, as always. Next, we are going to move into our small business update with Michael Hill. So, Michael Hill, take us away.
Good evening, everybody. So sorry I missed you guys. I got a chance to watch the videos from last week. Great, powerful session. So I'm totally looking forward to meeting that outstanding woman. All right, so listen, you guys, got some good news on the PPP program, and then maybe some so-so news. And hopefully I'm not going to be talking about this moving forward, but a couple of things. Of course, the second round of money has gone out. We are hearing that it is anticipated that funding will run out Tuesday or sometime next week. So we don't have clarity on that, because I do have an opportunity on the other end to really talk with lenders and people who are receiving the funds. So I am getting an opportunity. I know it's certain funding that has not been released to our CDFIs and our micro lenders. The credit unions, our credit unions have received funding for the most part, and they have began lending. And if you guys can see the screen, we got this information from our very own state regional director, Ashley Bell. And these are some of the credit unions and MDIs that are providing lending regardless of if you have an account with them or not. I'm gonna get this information over to Simeon so he can get it out to you. One of the institutions that we're working closely with on this list is First Choice Credit Union. That's 157 on the list. We have a partnership with them. The NAACP has a partnership with them too. So the way that works is that you guys are considered members under the umbrella of the NAACP Gwinnett affiliation and relationship with the Atlanta Black Chamber. So if you fill out the information with First Choice Credit Union and it says, are you a member, then you can indicate, yes, you are a member, okay? And we make sure that Penny has that information, or our treasurer has that information, or whoever we designate that is filling that information out, so we can keep track of those individuals. And if they do have special circumstances, we can let the decision makers at First Choice Credit Union help them through that process. We do have an announcement. I can formally announce it now. The new president, which will be announced tomorrow sometime, and you guys are the first to hear this, our own Cassius Butts is now the official president of First Choice Credit Union. He's the former SBA director on the Obama administration. He will be taking the reins of First Choice Credit Union. So we do have a friend in Cassius. On the CARES allocation, I sent this information over to Penny. Let me know if you guys can see this screen. I'm not sure if it's coming up. Did that second screen pop up, Simeon?
Yes, it did. We can see it. We can see it. Okay, great.
Okay, great. So you see the Georgia allocation here. I think we got looks like about $4 billion sent to Georgia. It was allocated over the 4 counties: Cobb County, DeKalb County, Fulton County, and Gwinnett County. So those were the primary counties that received funding for this round. I was under the impression, someone told me Clayton also got it, but they're not on this list that I received regarding that. We still have an issue with funding to our secondary markets. One of our relationships that we have developed is with the Georgia Council of Black Mayors. And those mayors are consistent of population cities less than 500,000 population. So they are particularly our rural areas that could be Albany, Macon, Augusta, which are secondary markets, and those little surrounding counties in between. They consist of and represent about 83 mayors. So we're working with them on ensuring that they get allocations of dollars as well, because those are some of our harder hit cities. So just wanted to share that with you. And Penny, you did receive this, correct?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did share it with some of our elected officials to see where our money was, because if you are connected and collaborating with the Gwinnett NAACP, your name was submitted to our local elected officials who will be dispersing these funds. And I want to know where it's at and when they're going to give it out. And just like our upcoming speaker with pastor at Mount Carmel Church, Mount Carmel as our partner was on there. Anybody who is our Black Roundtable partner, who is a nonprofit or faith organization, per these prerequisites, they were on that list. So we submitted the names of many. So thank you, Michael, for that list to follow up and to hold people accountable to make sure that these monies will be properly dispersed here in Gwinnett County.
Okay, great. And then the last thing I have to report is, I'm waiting for it to queue up. Okay. Kids on gaming. Am I still here, Simeon? Am I freezing up right about now?
You're still here. It looks like your page is loading, but I can still see you. It's just loading your page there.
I don't know why it's doing this. It's about to go into a whole nother.
And if you want to chat me a link, I can pull it, unless it's in your Gmail, obviously.
Let's see.
I can pull it up.
Let's go back to this. Yeah, here we go. Okay, on Tuesday, the Small Business Roundtable will be convening Nancy Pelosi to speak with business owners on the COVID-19 ongoing economic impact. So Nancy Pelosi will be speaking on Tuesday, May 5th from 1 p.m. Pacific time. So that's 4 p.m. on our Eastern, along with the Asian Pacific Landers, I don't know why I say African American, I'm sorry, American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship. And it's very interesting because I like people to see this, because everybody used to always ask us, why do you have a Black chamber? And as you see, is that other groups have chambers, even the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, which has probably been in existence over the last 3 years. So it's very important that we develop these various coalitions. Some can be advantageous, some can be disadvantaged, particularly when you're competing for dollars. But the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, they will be presenting Ms. Pelosi on Tuesday at 4 p.m. So if you are interested in that, I'll make sure that you get that link. I think that's it. Let me see if there's anything else I need to trying to get back to the screen here.
Let's see if there's any questions for you right quick.
All right, go ahead.
Are there any questions for Michael about any of these funds, these groups, how you may be able to participate and join some of these groups who are advocating for economic dollars for our community?
I had filled out an application and was really looking to get a substantial amount to do some renovation of a property that we have that we use for women coming out of prison. And I filled it out through the online COVID site. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I received a small amount of money, which I don't know how they even determined that amount of money. But I'm still looking to try and get a larger sum. And even if it's a loan, I'm willing to, since the loans are going to be loans that it's not needed to have a guarantee or anything like that, I'm looking to try and get a loan. But so I don't know, well, since they sent me this minuscule amount of money, does that exempt me from still trying to get additional capital?
Okay, well, now, did you receive money from the stimulus check, meaning that that's what you filled out for your income tax individually?
No,
is that the money?
It's not that. This came from the SBA. It said SBA.
Okay, was that the PPP or the EIDL? So it must have been the first one you submitted, right? So the EIDL, which was the Emergency Disaster Relief Fund, is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one I filled out.
Okay, so that, and you received what, like $1,000 or something like that?
$3,000.
$3,000. So that's it for that. So basically that $3,000, and make sure that you say it was for what the intended purpose was, because it wasn't for kind of to go towards programming and things of that nature. So you got to be very careful with that. And that was the other announcement you reminded me of the other announcement that I needed to make. Mm-hmm. The Trump administration now is doing fraud investigations, you mm-hmm. guys, on how the monies are being used. So that came out. Someone just sent me that information. So please make sure that however you talk about this money, how you plan to use this money, it is for its intended purpose. So the emergency disaster relief funding was based on the number of employees in your organization. So for example, if you received $3,000, that was because maybe you submitted 3 individuals that was right.
Four staff members.
Correct. So when it originally came out, it was 10,000 regardless.
Yeah.
So they changed it. They changed it over a period of time, which really came out to however number of employees that you have. Now with the PPP, that's a little different too, because it's really about payroll. So that is a loan. And you can combine the PPP loan with the EIDL loan, but you got to be very careful with that. But it's intended for like mortgage, interest, rent. But typically 75% of that is supposed to go towards your payroll efforts, which really technically you kind of stated in your first loan, your emergency disaster relief. These institutions will do regular lending. So that's what we're focused on. Like I'm really not focused on this catch all government stuff, because it's very minuscule in terms of what they are really providing our community with. I am hearing success stories and things of that nature, and I hope to God that everybody filled it out correctly for its intended purpose. So one of the things, and we're going to be working closely with the Gwinnett County NAACP. This is something when we start talking about our banking relationships, when we start a fund, that's something that Penny has kind of charged me with in terms of making sure that we have our own allocations to do more flexible financing. We're going to be using different groups to help with this. It may not be something that necessarily comes through NAACP, but an association associated with NAACP, which I prefer, that it be no catches with this funding that we're getting ready to do. So look for those conversations to happen very, very soon over the next 90 days. But our relationship right now with bringing together the NAACP, the African American Coalition of Credit Unions, and also the First Choice Credit Union, that is going to be a trifecta of opportunities for us to get funding through this organization to our community. So I said, one of the best things when you play the game of Monopoly is to be the banker, right? So, and that's who we all running in problems with, is the bankers.
So First Choice Credit Union would be the vehicle for trying to get that loan?
Absolutely, that'd be the preferred lender. But I would hold off on that until they have a formal relationship with the organization, so we can kind of steer you through that process. Because it is a relationship, right? So that's how we're able to get a lot of success that's going on right now. And like I said, we have developed a very powerful financial coalition with, if you really think about what I'm saying, is the African American Coalition of Credit Unions, which represent over 150 credit unions throughout the nation. CDFIs, and I think I challenged you guys on another call, Google what a CDFI is and what it can do, because we have organizations that are going to let us use their CDFIs under various groups and nonprofits that we have identified. So there is a process that is going to take place, but it's going to take place very rapidly, and you're going to see some things where we're not asking for permission anymore, and we're just making some things happen. So I'm excited about what's happening. All right, you guys. Any other questions?
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Because we need to start wrapping up now. And as a matter of fact, this is an excellent way to segue into things that you said about our economic presence and building these relationships. I just need to quickly remind everybody that this pandemic that's happening now, what's happening to us as a community, as a people, it is being amplified. When we think about what happened in Katrina back in 2006, and we saw how the marginalized were the last and the least to be taken care of, this national pandemic has made these communities of marginalized people nationally come to the forefront, because we are the people who are dying. We are the people who are not having services. And we are the people who are the last to be hired, but the first who have to go back into this line of fire. And what all this is leading to, that I'm saying, there's a larger conversation that needs to be had. in our country now. Not about why Black African Americans and minorities are the first to die, but why is this? And what are the causal effects that are making these things happen? And so when we look at it, and the word that no one wants to say in this country is racism. So this conversation needs to be changing. And when we start researching how those changes need to be made, they're going to be needed to be made economically. So the conversation has to change. We cannot talk about equality. We cannot talk about why we don't have things. We need to talk about equity and parity and how resources are being distributed in this country. And the Gwinnett NAACP is going to make sure that this conversation goes forth. I just have to briefly tell you about a situation today that happened to me. And what this makes me know is that there is a lot of education that needs to take place. As our governor on April 30th sent out the new executive order stating that people need to go back to work and that businesses open, I want you all to make sure that you're making decisions for your safety, because my family and all the other families who know that it is not safe are taking precautions, wearing masks, wearing gloves, and only going to places who are properly ready to serve people. Well, today, my husband and I, we went to a location where we were purchasing food for a family. And this is a national franchise. When we went into that store, well, when we drove up to the window, the young person was not masked. And we asked for the manager. Come to find out, the manager was not masked. And this was a KFC where 6 to 7 people were working in a small area, and they are preparing food to serve to the public, and no one properly following the guidelines from the executive order that were issued on April 30th. So I'm saying all to, and everyone at this location was African American in this small space. So what they are doing, because we have to go to work and because we are not being educated, we are putting our lives on the line. And I need to say with a loud voice, Gwinnett County, our African American people, diverse people, do not put your life on the line because you have to think that a dollar can equate to your life and your family. When we start educating, when we start seeking dollars among ourselves, we won't be in these desperate situations where we feel that we have no choices. And what we're saying at the NAACP is we need to make choices for us to thrive, choices for us to be industrial, choices for us to be economically sound. When those things are happening, our children will be educated. We will have health services. We will have the institutions that will propel us. So please, please, you let your resources, you let everyone know that we must take care of ourselves and properly take a stand against people who are not caring whether or not we live or die. And when we get the voice, as Michael was saying, to start our own economic circles, to build relationships, to have our own institutions, we won't have to make these decisions that will marginalize us and kill us. So with that, I'm going to be leaving this as my parting words, is please stay steadfast, immovable, always abounding, that we who, we can do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we could ask or think, with the power that works in us. And do not let anyone marginalize us. Do not. We've got to stand and make sure that people are knowing that there are options. There are options. So please stay at home. Please, when you go out, wear your mask, because this is an infectious disease. Please, let's make sure that we will do the things to make sure that our children and families will have a future. And we, the Gwinnett NAACP, will be talking about these conversations that will bring solutions and policies to this county. So I'd like to thank everybody who was on the line, and I want to open up the door for Pastor Willie Godman with Mount Carmel Baptist Church in Duluth, Georgia, because we need prayer right now. We need a comforter. And Pastor, I know I took a lot of your time, so please chime in.
Thank you, President Penny, and thank you to all persons who are on this call and the technical support. This is indeed a new time and a new age, and all that we thought was not possible to get done, we're discovering ways in which it can get done. All the ways that we thought we did not have resources, we're discovering ways that we are connected. And so I'm appreciative for all of your labor and all of your work, and we at Mount Carmel always appreciative for the care that is wrought by the Gwinnett Chapter NAACP. And I personally am committed to the ideals and what we press forward for the education and care of congregations, communities, people of color, diversity, inclusion, all of the ways in which we reach across borders and lines in order to ensure the safety and well-being of not only ourselves, but others, because what we have learned as African descended people, that is necessary for us to take care, to learn to care for ourselves. That is a God-given right. That is an inalienable right. That is an Emancipation Proclamation right. That's what we requested, that's what we demanded, that's what we required, and that's what was given, to care for ourselves, because that's all we wanted. That's all we ever really wanted. Well, not necessarily a level playing field, but just for other folk to get out the way. And so we can help that to happen. Because if we get out the way, then we can get done what we need to get done. So I'm encouraged, and I'm encouraging you who are on the front lines, you first responders, you who are in the trenches as well as in the rooftops, and to shout loud and to declare the presence of God's people and the benefit of God's nation and the glory of God's word, but absolutely the presence of the Spirit of God amongst us. So be encouraged, be encouraged. And so help folk to make the connection and connect the dots. That's the hardest work we have to do. Make the connection and connect the dots. And how does this impact my house and my family? Now that creates a deficit in our own sensitivity a lot of times because we're concerned about our own. But if I'm not safe, you're not safe. If I'm not healthy, you're not healthy. If you're not healthy, I'm not healthy. And so sometimes it's hard to, it's a struggle to remind folk of that. But that's part of the challenge, that we together can make this happen. So be encouraged, be encouraged. And so I offer and challenge us as we take a moment to pause and breathe. Because if we don't breathe, we can't think. Take a moment to pause and breathe. And to breathe deeply. Oxygen to the furthest extremities of our bodies. Take a moment to breathe. Take in the Ruach, the very Spirit of God. Take a moment to breathe. And feel the presence of the divine. Take a moment to breathe. Health in your whole body and your whole soul, whole spirit. Take a moment to breathe. As you breathe deeply, capacity of your lungs, the strength of your physical being. Great God, we are grateful for breathing. Grateful for medical technicians who can help those who need it with ventilators. And then sometimes, God, we don't know we're not breathing. Sometimes we don't know. because we're so used to being anxious. But right now, we breathe, God. We help others to do the same. Thank you, God. Amen and Ashe.
Thank you for those words. Thank you for those words. Penny, if you want to take us out.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Pastor Godman, for those wonderful words. And please join us next week. Please look forward to our general meeting that's going to be held virtually on Tuesday, May 12th at 7. Bless you all. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Gwinnett.
Thank you.